How do you get people on the same page? I got a great question, and the question was being on the same page. Mindsets are different, so it might be that topics are discussed, but things go in a different direction. How do you manage this and make sure all the people are on the same page? And it's a great question because you see it more prevalently in some situations than others, but I'll give you a situation that springs to mind. So I have a team of copywriters and only one woman who is in the team. So one of the things we write about is a financial newsletter, and the avatar for that financial newsletter is something like 96% male, and they're predominantly over 50. And when the woman who joined us as a copywriter, who was a superb copywriter, she just couldn't quite nail that avatar. Because it's all testosterone, it's cars, it's women, it's music, it's sports, because that's the avatar. The majority of people are men over 50, and that's the sort of things that they like. And she just couldn't get that kind of oomph, that, killer edge, or she couldn't quite phrase things the way that a man would talk to another man in a bar. And that's what you're really trying to achieve. Great copywriters, they can write copy as though they're writing it to a 10-year-old, and they will understand it. Because if you use big words, you try and impress people with how clever you are, it doesn't work in copy. Because if you use, an interesting kind of side note there, if you're ever reading and there's a word that you don't understand, you may continue reading, but your brain's actually still trying to decipher the word that you didn't understand. So there's a real talent to copywriting, but this particular lady couldn't quite get it. And what we did was we built this empathy map, which is kind of 4 sections. What do people say? What do they think? What do they do? What do they see about that particular avatar? And over time, with constant guidance and taking her outside her preconceived ideas, she became a killer. Now let's reverse that situation. We were also in a health space that was predominantly 90% over women. The men writers really struggled to sympathize, empathize, put themselves in the shoes of middle-aged women who were overweight. They couldn't quite get what was going through their head. And it's the same process. You got to find a framework. You got to find a methodology to help that person understand. And I think you can get everybody swimming in the right direction, but it takes time, because there's not only is there a difference between male and female and how they think, I believe, but there's also a difference in personalities. You have soft personalities, harsh personalities. The world is a colorful place, which is how it should be, and that's what makes it interesting. But when you're trying to sell something in marketing, or when you're trying to build a business around a particular avatar, you really got to understand the demographics, where they come from, how old they are, all of the things that make up that group of people. But more importantly, you also have to understand the problem. So there is an old saying in marketing that the person who can describe the problem the best wins. In other words, if you're talking to somebody and you have a similar problem, or you've been in a similar situation and you can describe it, the other person knows that you have gone through that, as opposed to somebody who's making an attempt to describe the problem, but they can't really put themselves in the other person's shoes. Or in Scotland, they used to say a fisherman can always smell another fisherman. It's okay to talk about fishing, but unless you really love fishing and you know all the terminology and the jargon and all of the things that fishermen like to do, then you're not going to empathize with them really well. I've even known copywriters. There was a copywriter who was writing for a newsletter that was geared towards the elderly and disabled, and he took the time to go to a nursing home and spend 2-3 days talking to the people, getting to know them, asking them their struggles. And when he wrote a letter, he killed it. He absolutely knew what that person was going through. So coming back to the question of, how do you get everybody on the same page? So whether the copywriting is an example of that, but with your team, your objective, and you've got to think about your objective, is to get everybody swimming in the same direction. But if you have a team of 10 people, there are 10 personalities involved there. There will be some common ground. So you start with the common ground first. And it's that constant dialogue. For small teams, there's nothing wrong with having a 15, 20-minute huddle every day and talking about, what's your wins, what's your losses, what do you want to learn today, what are you trying to achieve today, and get them to really open up so that you can discover the sticky points. You can discover the points, the blockages in the system that you can address, and find out whether that person doesn't understand it or they're really not capable of it. And I actually had a situation last week where I've always believed that if you take enough time with people, you can get them to where you want them to go. It's just a question of how much time and effort you want to put into it. But I did have a situation last week where the person just didn't get it. And after taking twice as long as I would have spent with anybody else, but thought the person was worth the effort, I could see in that last day or two before I let the person go that they were never going to get it because their ideas were so firmly rooted in their belief system and so immovable that it would have taken just too much time and energy. Life's too short to waste time with people who will never get it. So to get everybody on the same page, I think that you first of all got to clearly define what that page is. This is the direction. This, the strategy is where are we going, and the tactics, how are we going to get there? Clearly lay that out. And painstakingly go over that plan with each individual person until you know in your heart that they've got it. And there will be people that you can just show something to and they've got it, right? They just get it. Other people, they don't get it, or they think they get it, and you know that they're not going in the right direction, and it's your job to point them in that right direction. And there will be other people who just are lost. Right? But if you constantly keep that conversation going, you'll eventually develop a rapport with the person and the team and know to the degree of understanding that they have. And there will come a time where it's obvious to yourself and the team that that person's just not going to make it or get it or be valuable to the team, or even worse, be detrimental to the team, and that person's got to go. But to get everybody on the same page, it's a lot about very clear leadership and making it very clear in granular detail what's expected from them, and then having constant conversations as a leader, asking the right questions to feel comfortable that they're on the same page. If you like these tips, don't forget to follow and like and leave me some questions. I love the questions. Thanks for listening.